I am very worried. It's like, come on, cork. It's like not going in.
Hello and welcome to episode 8 of Popcorn and Prosecco, a full 30 minutes of nonstop movie talk. This week we're going to cover Dom Hemingway, a movie that I'm actually going to make, and Captain America the Winter Soldier. I'm Perri Nemiroff, and here are my co-hosts, Angie and Kristy Puchko.
Hi, I have Prosecco for the name for our show today.
I should have
I'm
popcorn,
jealous.
but I went with Chardonnay. Sorry, guys.
And I'm working and sadly sober. To kick things off, we're going to go with Dom Hemingway. Kristy, you taking that one?
Yeah. So it's actually really fitting that Angie and I are drinking because Dom Hemingway is all about the debauchery. Though he's not a white wine drinker, he is a blow and hookers type of man, and he is amazing. So Dom Hemingway stars Jude Law, and it's about this criminal named Dom Hemingway who is kind of profane and poetic. Like, he gives these grand monologues about his own genitalia, and it's hysterical and really funny. But he's basically, the movie starts with him getting out of prison after a 12-year stint, and he's trying to get his life back together, but not in like the going legit type of route. It's basically like he's going to meet his old contacts, and he's trying to kind of not deal with the fact that he and his daughter don't really have a relationship because he hasn't seen her in 12 years. So that's something he kind of puts off. Richard E. Grant is in this movie, and he plays his best friend, and Emilia Clarke from Game of Thrones, she plays his daughter, and Damien Brashear is in here as kind of his old mob boss. And it is such a bonkers movie where you get debauchery and car crashes and robberies and just, vengeance galore and so much insanely funny dialogue. I'm a big fan, but Angie, what did you think of this movie?
I thought it was really fun. The one thing, though, is that there are lots of different tones going on in this movie. So sometimes it feels like you're watching, what you described, like this like big, bonkers, British gangster crime drama comedy type thing, like Lock, Stock or something. And then other times it feels like a cute little quirky indie about like this like, sad sack man trying to redeem himself. And then other times it's like this like, very sad downbeat drama about like this man and who is a really terrible relationship with his daughter. So it felt like every 5 minutes I was watching kind of a different movie. There's a character who is named Melody. She's very like quirky. She feels like she just dropped in. Yeah, she feels like she just dropped in from another movie altogether. And so it's a testament to Jude Law's performance that it hangs together as well as it does, because through all of these, he is still like very consistently this character. And I think that it's a really, really great performance from Jude Law. I remember when he was just kind of like he kind of seemed like the pretty boy actor, and he is not the pretty boy here. This is one of those performances where you can see he's got no vanity, and yeah. So I thought it was really fun, but I thought that it was a little bit uneven to me.
That's interesting. I do think the tone in the movie shifts drastically, but for me it shifted in a way that made sense. Like, the beginning of the movie establishes Dom as he thinks he's just kind of the king of all criminals. Like, he gets out of prison, and they throw toilet paper out the windows and they cheer for him, and he's just a big man on campus. But then, like, they slowly pick away at his idea of himself, and you start to realize that it's a lot of bluster without a lot of substance. Like, he's been out of the game for 12 years, and when he gets back to London, he's confronted with all these ways in which he's just kind of been left behind with the times. And I thought that was actually really compelling. You see that mostly with the plot line with his daughter, where now she's a grown woman and she has a child of her own, and he has to kind of try to deal with all that. But also in his dealings with the next generation of criminals is very funny. And I had a blast with this movie, and I think it's predominantly because of Jude Law. He's so good in this. It's unlike anything we've seen from him. And yeah, I think there was definitely a span of his career where he was kind of coasting on being charming and pretty. And I have nothing against those movies. I love The Holiday. I could watch it whenever. But this is just so interesting and different. It's like in Anna Karenina, we saw him kind of pretty, and do something really interesting with this kind of sad sack character. And now in Dom Hemingway, this seems like a role that Tom Hardy could have played. Like, to get you in the mindset. Like, Tom Hardy 20 years from now, because Dom's a lot older than Tom Hardy would be able to play. But it's like,
I think that Dom is older than Jude Law is, because the age difference between him and Emilia Clarke was odd. But anyway, go on.
I think it plays well, but I think he's probably a little old for Jude Law, but I think Jude Law plays it well, to explain that. But he's a hulking man, and like, Jude Law gives his all, man. He does stunts in this. He does ridiculous dialogue that I just keep talking about the dialogue, but the dialogue is so funny. Go online and find clips of this. Like, at one point, Richard E. Grant offers him booze so that he can get over his hangover, and he's like, here's some more of the dog that bit you, and he's like, that dog vomited on my soul last night, or something like that. You're just like, okay. All right. And, like, he just talks like that.
Have a memorable quote page a mile long.
Yeah. Absolutely. Like, honestly, it's just such a funny movie. Like, it's halfway through it, I was like, well, I want to watch this again right now. And then it was interesting because it got a lot deeper and more vulnerable than I expected it to with the story with the daughter. And if you're a big Game of Thrones fan, I got to warn you, Emilia Clarke isn't in it that much. The daughter character is more of a symbol of what he lost than she is a full-fledged character. And normally that would bother me, but this is really Dom's show, so I was fine with that. But I actually love this movie. I thought it was really funny, and I think if you were excited about the other movies that are coming out this week, but you don't want to deal with the crowds that are going to go to Captain America, go see Dom Hemingway. It is an R-rated movie that loves its R rating, and it just goes for it.
That it does. I want to bring up one other thing that I loved about it, and that was, so the most consistent relationship in his entire life and in this movie is with Richard E. Grant, his best friend. And they have, I love that relationship so much. I want to see, I want there to be a whole series of movies about the two of them just being together, because, Dom's like the crazy, that crazy fun wild friend you have that, you enjoy drinking with them, but the next day you want to strangle them. But Richard E. Grant plays the guy that sticks with him through all this, and he's like the only one that kind of knows how to deal with him. And I don't know. I feel like I'm not doing justice to how entertaining and fun
totally
it is.
right.
But they have very different energies. Like Richard E. Grant is very much more low key and quiet, whereas Dom is this very big, larger than life personality, and they play off of each other so well. They have amazing chemistry.
It's also that Richard E. Grant's performance kind of underlines the circumstances. Like, there's one scene where Dom completely loses his cool to his boss and his mob boss, which is not something you want to do. And Dom is screaming and freaking out, and the boss, played by Demian Bichir, is very cool exterior wise, and to kind of give the audience an idea of just how bad an idea what is happening is, they just cut to Richard Grant and no words. He just makes this face, and it's this kind of tennis ball, eyes going back and forth, and his mouth just starts sliding to the side, and it's just dead on. He's so smart, and it's so funny, and they're kind of screwed up, but they're very committed relationship. It's actually a really fun companion piece to With Nail and I. So if you were ever a fan of that movie, I mean, Richard Grant kind of carries on that bravado and that, but he's not the ornery one this time. He's kind of, Dickie's kind of sweet.
Yeah, I don't think I loved it quite as much as you did. Like I said, the tone was a little bit off for me, and the ending felt too cute and too tidy. But overall, I mean, it's really fun. Jude Law really, like you said, gives one of the best performances I've ever seen. And I think, like you, I would say if you don't want to fight the crowds, this is a really fun movie to watch.
Kristy, your lemur is giving me the creeps.
Oh, this is...
It's judging me right now.
I'm actually in love with him. He's from the island of Lemurs, Madagascar. And I brought him home and thought he was funny, and I kept setting him around my workspace, and now it's just, he's my blogging buddy, so...
You should hide him. You should hide him around so, Zach will come home and just see his creepy little face in, the shadows or something.
No, what you should really do is rig it so that while Zach is sleeping, rig it so that when he wakes up, it's just staring right at him.
I would love that.
My divorce right now. But let's move on to the movie that pretty much everyone else is going to see this weekend. We've seen it, so we're good. But
actually, we should talk about Perri's movie first.
Oh yeah, you're right.
When you introed that, I was like, wow, everyone's going to want to know or see my movie.
That is also true, though.
That is also true. But we got to talk about something even better first, which is Perri's movie.
Damn right. Even though I loved Captain America, this will be better. So I got my master's in producing, and in school I made a whole bunch of shorts, and one short got to play in South by Southwest's Midnight program last year, and people loved it, and we adore it, obviously. So the time has come to turn Child Eater into a feature film, and we're actually going to do it. This isn't just talk anymore. I'm leaving for Catskill, New York tomorrow, and on Monday, April 7th, we will begin principal photography. And it is kind of terrifying, but really exciting. To give you a sense of what the story is about, basically in a nutshell, it's a boogeyman-type story about a boogeyman-type character who eats the eyes of children to keep himself from going blind. Longer story is that this boogeyman is named Robert Bowery, and way back when he owned a children's zoo, like a petting zoo, and then he got hit with a case of macular degeneration, and all the parents were all crazy, and they didn't want their little kids going to his zoo anymore, so he got really pissed and kind of killed them all, and now that zoo still exists, and his legend is still there, and, like, he basically, like, lurks in the woods, and the zoo is decaying, and, like, the local urban legend is don't go out there into the zoo. And sure enough, the new kid in town has no choice but to move into this house that's kind of, like, walking distance away from the zoo, and he's got to convince his babysitter, Helen, that Robert Bowery is real, otherwise he might have his eyes taken. So that's the gist of it, and we are going to make this thing, and we're going to make it in some really cool locations, only because of the super generous people in Catskill, New York, and we only have the budget for it because we have people around us that are really supportive and nice. We have a Kickstarter campaign up and running now, and many, many close friends have donated, and it means the absolute world to me and everybody involved, and this is terrifying but really exciting, and I'm hoping that I'll still get the chance to come on Popcorn and Prosecco each week to give you a little update about how production is going. So that is Child Eater.
As someone who saw the short, I didn't tell you this. When I first watched it, it was like noon or something, and I was watching it during my lunch break, and then I stopped it because it was freaking me out and no one else was here. So I waited until my husband got home. He was like in the shower, but at least he was home. And I was just, I didn't want to be alone watching it because the tension was that good in the short. So I'm very excited to see what you guys do with the feature.
I'm very glad you thought that. My Nana still says, my Nana, my grandmother, she loves to come up to me and say, they're best when they're fresh. And, like, she'll do it in a little voice and, like, do that with her fingers, and it makes me so happy.
Can we find the short? Can people see the short online?
Absolutely. If you go on Vimeo to their staff pick section, there is a link there to the short in full. And I'll also include a link in the description part of this episode so you can all check it out. And yeah, I mean, it's going to be crazy, and I hope I survive.
We hope so too.
All right, so you guys ready to talk about the big one?
I apparently was
we already
too ready.
talked about Child Eater.
Yeah.
Captain America, the Winter Soldier. Angie, this one is yours.
Yes. So you have probably heard that there's a new Marvel movie out this week, because whenever there's a new Marvel movie out, you can never not hear about it. Anyway, so this one picks up after the Avengers, obviously, with Captain America, obviously, and basically he's just kind of still trying to adjust to modern life. And he's working for S.H.I.E.L.D. He's working a lot with, Nick Fury and the Black Widow and stuff. But he starts to... I don't really know how to explain the plot without getting too spoilery, because there's a lot of twists and turns, I guess. But basically, so Robert Redford plays... What is he, the Secretary of Defense?
Yeah, I think so. They keep calling him Secretary.
Right. Who's sort of like overseeing S.H.I.E.L.D., and then things start to just not be quite right, and pretty soon, Captain America and his friends uncover a conspircy, and I don't want to get...
They don't know who to trust.
Yeah, basically. The title is a reference to the Winter Soldier, who is... I don't know if you remember Bucky Barnes, Captain America's BFF from the first film, played by Sebastian Stan, but basically the bad guys have gotten a hold of him, and Captain America-ized him, like turned him into a super soldier, and he's the villain in this one. And yeah, I don't want to say too much about it, so I'll just say I think the filmmakers have said over and over that this is basically a Marvel movie that's also kind of in the vein of a 70s political thriller, and that's pretty much what it is. It's also, but even though the influences are kind of retro and Captain America kind of seems like a retro superhero, it's really modern in that it touches on very modern concerns like drone warfare and the surveillance state and all that kind of thing. So, yeah. So I think that this is one of the best movies to come out of the Marvel Cinematic Universe so far, along with the Avengers and Iron Man. I think it's probably a little bit better than the last Captain America, which to me was also one of the better ones. It was really exciting to me because I was starting to get kind of like that Marvel fatigue of like, oh, another one, they're all kind of the same, but this one actually felt really different. I think that Captain America is actually really emerging as maybe the most interesting, most well-rounded character in the Marvel universe. And this one has lots of Black Widow, which I love because we've seen her in a few other things, but you get to know her so much better in this one, and she's just a really fun, interesting character.
This really confirms that she deserves her own movie.
Yes!
Yeah!
Because this is the first time she's always been fun to watch since like day one of her appearance in the Marvel universe on screen. Iron Man kind of showed her as a person with layers and not just a pretty thing that kicks ass, and I want to see more of those layers. She's got some really interesting drama going on.
Yeah, but what annoys me is like I think that they asked Kevin Feige like, people keep asking him, are you going to do a Black Widow movie? Are you going to do a Black Widow movie? And then in one thing he said something like, he said something that was, they're never going to be like, no, never, because then people will be upset. But he kind of was just like, well, you'll see. I mean, she's in Captain America a lot, so maybe we don't really need to. Or at least that's the kind of gist that I got. That's kind of the message that I read out of his statement. He didn't actually put it
crazy
quite that way.
He doesn't do it. Like, I know
oh my god.
Think about the hype that would come from, like, a female standalone superhero movie, too. Like, even though we already know her, like, just the idea of that being a new thing could be huge. I mean, that could blow. Can you imagine, really? Just, like, try to put the numbers together, how many people would go and see Scarlett Johansson starring in a Black Widow movie?
Yeah,
there's
Scarlett
no reason not to
Johansson
do it.
in, like, a skin-tight black suit with guns. I mean, if you want to appeal to people on that level, which is part of the appeal of all superhero movies, even though the heroes are usually guys, it's good for that too. And
sorry, go ahead.
They go into her past a little bit more here. It's alluded to in like the past movies. They talk about it a little more, but they still leave enough of it up, to mystery that you could make a great kick-ass story about her.
I genuinely feel like they're leaving breadcrumbs to set up for a movie. Otherwise,
I really hope so.
There's no reason to go so much into who she is and what she's dealing with. Like this movie is a lot about Captain America and his background with what he's gone through, but also it's a lot about who she is, which is not something that any of the previous movies have done before. Iron Man 2 didn't really care. Iron Man 2, whatever. She was cool looking and everything, but she didn't have a lot to do, and she was just sassy, and it was like totally one layer.
Well, Iron Man 2 was more like she wasn't really a character in her own right as so much as she was like, Marvel's attempt to build up their universe. Yeah.
And then in Avengers, we got to see her fleshed out a little bit. We had that amazing intro scene with her, with the chair and everything, and she's so damn cool. And you get more stuff like that in this. She's got really great action scenes in this, and with the same kind of barbed sense of humor, where she's like, it's like the attitude is like what, but way mellower. And I mean, we also get to see like who she is beyond that, which is actually really interesting. I was profoundly entertained by that, and it's really smart. And I think Scarlett Johansson, like, she knows how to bring depth into like these characters that could be so one note, and I think she does great stuff with this. I genuinely do feel like they have to be planning a Black Widow movie, especially because if you look at the way they're setting up the individual movies, you got Thor, and it's heavy on fantasy, and like it's, with its worlds and the magic and the things and, pseudoscience. And then like Iron Man like has become this kind of dark comedy thing and very action comedy, and that's its deal. And now you got Captain America, and they're making political thrillers. I mean, that's what they're making, and this one's really fun because I was actually quite taken aback by how I was quite surprised at how much it is a thriller. Like, there's lots and lots of action, but at its core, it is asking serious questions about what today are we willing to give up? Like, are we willing to give up our freedom to feel safe? That's the main question of the film, and it's actually a really terrifying question, to the point where some people
I mean, obviously this is sci-fi, but it's not that hard to see what happens in this movie as a logical extension of what's already happening. And yet I don't want to make it sound like it's just like, and I don't want to make it sound like it's too
it's not
thinky of a
didactic
movie.
or something.
Yeah, no, it's not. it's
It's just there. It's like if that stuff interests
it's
you,
a really
there.
fun superhero thriller that also has this other layer that, the more you think about it, the more troubling it is.
I have
It's
to
the
say-
most grounded Marvel movie out there by far,
yeah.
and it's so you could see it in that first scene alone, just the way that they shoot Steve Rogers running, and the way that that shot selection progresses, and the way that the dialogue is between him and Falcon. That is like, it basically just proves that he's got superpowers, but at the same time puts him on the same playing field as everyone else, and kind of makes it feel, like still, I guess, kind of impossible, but almost like within arm's reach. Like, that should exist in this world.
He's more of a man than the other guys, and I don't mean like man. I mean like he's far more relatable as a person. He doesn't have the protection of wealth.
Even though he's a guy that was, a genetically engineered super soldier from the 1940s that's alive today, as far as superhero characters go, in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, yeah, he feels the most like an actual person, like a guy.
Yeah.
My only complaint here is Skinny Steve. I was hoping I would never have to see that ever again, and
God,
then
it's so uncanny and like a weird.
It's wrong. That is just wrong and should never have been done. I loved this movie. I loved The Winter Soldier. It is easily one of my favorite Marvel movies. I think I still have a preference for Thor, but this was a great, great movie in almost every single respect except for Skinny Steve. But I'm just like, I'm really thrilled by this. This movie made me so freaking happy. It gave tons of characters that I actually cared about and weren't just people running around doing things for the sake of a thrill. And you know what else really impressed me is that this feels like a movie about a character, about Steve Rogers, but at the same time, they do an exceptional job building like quite a few supporting characters. Like, Captain America feels fleshed out. So does the Winter Soldier. So does Black Widow. So does Nick Fury.
I actually think that the Winter Soldier, he's an interesting character, but I get the feeling that this is more of his introduction, which, I mean, knowing how the Marvel Cinematic Universe works, it obviously is. But I think when I left the theater, I think Perri was sitting next to me and actually said, for a movie that's subtitled The Winter Soldier, there's not that much Winter Soldier in it. Like, he doesn't have as much to do as I would have thought.
That's true, but I kind of did really appreciate the way that they did give him that layer. It was like just through like a twinge of exposition, and all of a sudden, out of nowhere, he became more than just like a villain. He became a person.
I know, but I think that he was maybe the least interesting supporting character. I mean, like, when you see the title, you think like, oh, the crux of this movie is going to be the relationship between Captain America and the Winter Soldier. Is right there in the title. But his relationships with every other character is more interesting, and I think that was like my one big quibble with the movie was that, like, the climax builds up obviously to a confrontation between Captain America and the Winter Soldier, but it doesn't land emotionally in the same way that his big scenes with, like, Nick Fury or the Black Widow or, like, his friendship with Falcon, played by Anthony Mackie, does.
Not to get into huge spoilers, but I think that's...
You might want to do a spoiler section, though.
Well, okay, but this part I think you're okay with. So, in their final confrontation, I was very moved, but definitely more from Captain's angle than Winter Soldier, because I don't think... We don't get enough time with him to be reconnected to that character, but Captain America has become my favorite Avenger, and it's totally Chris Evans. He just does such a beautiful job of creating this character who is vulnerable and just still he's vulnerable, but he's not he's not a wuss. He's so fearless and brave, and like you have to remember the fact that like he has super serum for him or whatever, but he's not immortal, and he doesn't have like wealth or gadgets to protect him. He has a shield, and what I also think is so damn cool is in the whole movie you never see him fire a gun, even though tons of gunfire in this movie. Like, Cap doesn't need a gun. It's such like his best offense is a good defense for him, and it's really a fascinating thing to watch. Like, and like the action sequences in this are amazing, and Chris Evans gives such heart to this character, and in a way that's just so fascinating because like he could easily have been the dud of the Avengers. He could have easily been the Cyclops, or everybody just thinks he's boring. But like Captain America, like he just. I mean, they're flashier and funnier characters, totally, but Captain America just hits me right here, and like...
Yeah, and I think that it's especially amazing that they managed to accomplish that, because in a way, Captain America kind of represents, like, he is like the ideal all-American superhero, like, if on paper he sounds just like like a perfect,
Like a Boy
boring
Scout.
Boy Scout guy, like more of an ideal than a person. But Chris Evans brings like such humanity and personality into this role. He's got like a great sense of humor. You kind of get the feeling that even though he's like a very idealized, American hero, it still feels like, I think like you were saying before with other aspects of the movie, it still feels kind of like it's almost within reach. Like you could almost imagine somebody like that actually existing.
It's because he takes his trait, he takes Captain America's main trait, and that's that he's moral and applies that to every situation that he's in, and he kind of like gives you access to that. No matter what he's doing, it's not just like a man on a mission and leave it at that. You always see him thinking about everything and kind of processing everything that's going on around him, and that's what makes him so relatable because, hey, don't we all do that?
And it's really interesting in this movie because the running theme is he keeps being told not to trust anyone, and that's not how he functions. Like, he hates being that person. Like, he's such an honest guy. You can see it bother him to not trust people. But it's something he has to deal with in this movie, and it's like you said, you can watch the gears going, and it's just like Evans makes this so much fun to watch. I mean, like, I'm so excited already for Captain America 3. I have no idea what it's about. I don't care. I like Captain America, and I want to see more of him.
All right, I think it's time to jump into spoilers right now because there are just so many good ones that we really want to talk about. So here's your warning, spoiler alert for Captain America the Winter Soldier. If you do not want to hear any spoilers for this movie, stop watching now.
And come back next week.
There you go. Come back next week. Popcorn and Prosecco. Yay. So, I mean, I kind of just want to jump to the Easter eggs, but there's still so much to talk about in the movie. I don't know. Where do we even kick this off?
The first thing that I want to talk about is basically what Captain America the Winter Soldier does to the entire Marvel Cinematic Universe, and the effects are pretty huge. You find out that Hydra, the evil organization from the first Captain America, has kind of been within S.H.I.E.L.D. all along. And so basically, S.H.I.E.L.D. is riddled with traitors. Nobody knows who to trust. And I think it ends with S.H.I.E.L.D. being, is it completely dismantled? Is that right? Yeah. So
all
actually,
the secrets are put online.
Yeah. So its effects are pretty. I mean, I feel like there were some interviews before where like the actors and filmmakers tease like, yeah, you're gonna see, Avengers is gonna the next Avengers is gonna deal with the aftermath of this, and you're just like, yeah, okay. But yeah, no, there's a lot to digest.
I don't even understand how they can have a S.H.I.E.L.D. TV show anymore. Like,
I think everyone.
Does anybody care about the S.H.I.E.L.D. TV show?
I mean, I couldn't get into the characters. Like, I like Coulson and I like Ming-Na Wen's character, and then beyond that, I couldn't deal. But I mean, it's just fascinating because they've spent so many movies setting up what S.H.I.E.L.D. is and what S.H.I.E.L.D. does, and then in this movie, no more S.H.I.E.L.D.
Yeah, S.H.I.E.L.D. has been so far kind of like what knits the entire universe together, because in every movie, the one consistent factor, no matter what hero you were watching, was the presence of S.H.I.E.L.D. somewhere in the background doing something. Nick Fury recruiting people, or Coulson showing up. Yeah. So that's, that's been what kept
material at all? Does S.H.I.E.L.D. ever dissolve in, like, the Marvel comic universe?
I have to check with my comic book loving husband. I don't know. I just saw it this afternoon, and I haven't yet been able to be like, hey, so without spoiling this movie for you, tell me about S.H.I.E.L.D. and whether or not it destroyed it.
I wouldn't be surprised if it has happened, just because comic books, every character you can think of has died at least once or twice.
They crash and burn their stuff and then start a new series.
Yeah.
I mean, they've got to come up with another organization, right?
I think so, but I think what's interesting is that I think it's this thing where S.H.I.E.L.D. became so big and so omniscient that it's like, where were they going to go with it? So they had to tear it down. It's kind of like Iron Man and Iron Man 3. His biggest problem is that he's neurotic. So I think it's going to be like that, where like now the crew from S.H.I.E.L.D. needs to rebuild in a way that makes sense for them. And like by the end, Natasha, all of her dirty laundry, we're not told what it is specifically, but that's all out in the open, which again, I think we're gunning for a Natasha movie.
We need a movie.
How can you end that character's arc like that and not give another full
Well, that's what I'm saying. They could do such a slick, like, they could even make a smaller budget if they, for some reason, don't trust the appeal of Scarlett Johansson, which they'd be insane not to. They could do a
Yeah, it's not like she's been a movie star for over a decade.
Yeah, and I mean, the thing is that I think people genuinely like that character, but if they don't want to go and spend like $80 or $150 million on Black Widow movie, I don't think they'd need to. I think you can make a really cool Black Widow movie for like maybe 40, 60 mil.
Why wouldn't they want to spend all that money, though? Clearly, the more money they spend, the more money they make. I mean, these things are like foolproof.
Yeah, she's so good. Like, I want to see more of her. I mean, bring Hawkeye back in, sure. Bring Falcon in, whatever. They have so
We
many.
didn't even talk about Falcon.
Well, a little bit. Anthony Mackie is great as Falcon, actually. He doesn't have a whole lot to do, but I feel like it's like the Winter Soldier. This is more of a setup. They're
He's
bringing
kind
him
of like
in.
one note in this. He's like the comedic relief and just like flies around to show off a new form of action and fighting. And
He
like
does get cool scenes,
but
though.
that's it.
He gets some cool action scenes, but otherwise I don't really get the point of Falcon. I like Anthony Mackie, but it seems like the main job of he doesn't really have a superpower. His thing is that he has like this essentially a fancy jetpack so he can fly around. And I don't really understand the point because it seems like his function mainly is to fly around and get shot at.
I think
like
his function is actually to underline Steve's journey because Steve.
I meant his function as like a superhero, but
Sure.
no, as a character, it serves a purpose. But as like a flying superhero man, I was like, question mark?
I actually really like that because I thought that, I like the way that Falcon was a soldier who lost. He calls him his wingman, and then later they reveal actual wings, guys, actual wings. But he lost his wingman, and he was having a hard time dealing with that, and so he's the front of a group that like deals with post-traumatic stress and such. And Steve goes to the group, and he doesn't really he hangs out in the window in like the doorway because he can't, whatever, he's too away from things. But like I like that thread of bringing in a very real thing about how there are soldiers who are trying to deal with the things they've gone through, because that again is a running thread. So I like the way Anthony Mackie introduces that thread, but with his kind of like Anthony Mackie airiness, like he's so buoyant that he brings a really nice, vibrance to those moments that I think could have they could have been really dour. And as dark as those moments, the content of them is, it's his thing is like, we got to keep going. Like that's what we're
just so damn easy to like. Yeah. I mean, that character and him himself. But like, you know what we didn't bring up before that I think might be my least favorite part of this movie is Emily Van Camp. Agent 13 sucks.
Yeah, so
that is
Emily
the
Van
worst
Camp
character I've seen in a while.
Is that even a thing?
Emily Van Camp plays Sharon Carter, who is the niece of Peggy Carter, or I don't don't know what she is.
They never even say that in the movie, do they?
No,
I had no idea.
She's the Peggy Carter, who is
the button-down shirt.
Yes, she shows up as a nurse who lives in Captain America's building, and then you later find out that she is an agent who was purposely planted there to protect him, and they kind of hint that they might have a romance, which they do in the comics.
Protect him? That's a joke. She can't even disarm someone in that ending thing.
Yeah.
She's nothing compared to him. Why would she be planted there to protect him?
It's a weird thing in these movies where they keep sort of introducing a love interest for him and then being like, we don't have time for this. Like,
but that's what it was. Is her whole purpose in being there was I liked that. I liked all the playful banter, oh, you should go after her. But have it amount to a little something. When that wrapped up with just that line of dialogue in the cemetery and that was it, I'm like, wow, she got the shit end of the stick in this movie.
You know what it is though? It's like when it's not Captain America. Sorry, it's like when Black Widow was in Iron Man 2, and you're just like, but then she becomes a more prominent character later on. And
except Scarlett Johansson made much more of an impression than she did.
She's just such a blah character. They reintroduced her later, and I'm like, that's the same girl, right? Oh, okay, that's the same girl.
It's such a small role that I have trouble getting worked up about it. I agree that she ends up being in nothing
such a small role
but
that barely deserves to be there.
Yeah,
she's fine,
but it was so small that I my memory just glossed. I was like, oh right, she is also in this movie.
There's a lot of people in this movie. Danny Putty's in this movie. Is that how you say his name from Community?
Who's that?
Yeah.
He's like the tech guy in one
this.
scene.
He's like what Adam Pally was to Iron Man 3, where he just shows up briefly, is funny, and then that's it.
But he doesn't get.
Frank Grillo is pretty awesome in this movie.
Yes.
I liked him quite
he
a
was
bit.
really good.
He's pretty badass.
He is a relentless bad guy. I really enjoyed him.
Yeah,
and
he seemed to enjoy it
again. Yeah,
a bad guy you believe in a world of superheroes too. He's not super, but I totally believe that he belonged there and he could take them on.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I was also curious. Do we know anything about the guy who played the Algerian pirate?
I was wondering too, because there were a lot of close-ups of him. I have a feeling he's probably some sort of professional fighter or something.
That's what I was thinking.
Wide shots, I mean, he was doing it.
Yeah, that scene is so much fun. I have to say, I can't think of the last time in a movie. I've probably Fast and the Furious 6, where I just kept going whoa, aloud in the theater. I felt so bad for the strangers sitting near me because I just kept being like, wow, like it's just the things, guys, the things. And I think it's, again, because it's so grounded. Like, the action just feels so fantastic. And, there is some CGI, but a lot of it just seems like really good stunt work. I mean, some of the CGI are like, oh, that's CGI, but it's not sloppy. It's just that, whatever. I watch.
Yeah, I mean, it's not the raid, but the action is actually action where you can tell what's going on, which is not something you could say for all of these. But I think it's about time we actually wrap this up, sadly, as much as I could talk about Captain America for the next 3 hours. So any final thoughts, guys?
It's awesome. Go see it. I really didn't like the first movie, actually. Like, I didn't like it a lot. And I think it's because it's Skinny Steve for the most part, but that completely ruined the experience. But I walked into this one being like, I'd rather see another Thor. I walked out of this one, I am totally, like, on Captain America's side. I want more of him now.
Yeah, I'd second that. I completely recommend people going to see this. It's just so much fun, man. Go with crowds. I went at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, and it was a pretty packed theater, and everybody was super on board. It's a fun. I say go opening weekend because it's a fun movie to see, and then also go to Dom Hemingway, guys, because it's bonkers, and kids won't be there.
Well, that's true. I think the first thing I want to say is that Perry's wrong about Thor. It is not one of the better ones.
Stop it.
Popcorn Prosecco Showdown.
Yeah. The second thing I want to say is, I think, look, if you hate superhero movies, this is not the movie that's going to change your mind. But if you like the Marvel Cinematic Universe at all, if you've enjoyed those films at all, you will like Captain America the Winter Soldier. It's really fun. There are really great performances. There's a lot of great action. It's pretty much everything that you could want from, I think, one of these movies. So, yes, I think it's, 3 thumbs up, which sounds like it's weird to say, but I think we're all agreed that everyone should see this.
Yeah. And on that note, that is it for this week. But if you enjoyed what you saw, keep following along at popcornprosecco.com. Catch us on Twitter at Popcorn Prosecco, and also subscribe to our YouTube channel, Popcorn Prosecco. And of course, all 3 of us are all over the web. Angie, where can everybody find you?
You can find me on Twitter at AJHan, that's AJHAN, and you can find my writing on Slashfilm.
And Kristy?
I write for a bunch of different sites, mostly for Cinema Blend, so you can check me out there, or find me on Twitter at Kristy Puchko, KristyPuchko.
And I am all over the place as well, so I would direct you to my own personal site where I link to everything I write, littlemisscritical.com, and you can catch me on Twitter. My handle is Nemiroff. Thank you so much for watching. We will see you next week.
Bye. Cheers. All right, you guys, I'm very, very scared.
I'm so
proud of you.
I want to
laugh, but I don't want to take the video away from that.
I wish there was, like, someone else.
Do it. Angie, make noise.
Victory! Yeah!
Welcome to Popcorn and Prosecco.